I'm really happy to be asked to deliver this commencement speech honoring all of you, the 2021 graduates of the University of Western States. As a graduate myself, I know how hard this diploma is to get, no matter what field you are in. Today's ceremony marks the end of an incredibly rigorous study and the beginning of a professional career, your career in healing arts. It's a gigantic accomplishment, and I know your loved ones can be really proud as well as yourselves. Your graduation from UWS puts you in a renowned class above many others. I don't know if you know this or not. This renowned class includes not only the scope of education, but the track record that UWS holds as graduates are tested. Did you know that UWS holds a 98% pass rate for all sections of the national board exams as of the 2020 stats? It's a pretty remarkable achievement that is in part due to every one of you that took that test. I know full well the education wasn't easy. Every graduate in this room, no matter the degree, shares in the knowledge of the sacrifice and hard work it took to reach today. You're probably feeling a sense of relief mixed with a deal of exhaustion and some anticipation to get on with the career, the art of your career. I received my degree in 1984, and I can tell you I felt all these things and more on the day I finally got my diploma. Today, tonight, and maybe a few weeks to come, this is your time to congratulate yourself and celebrate with your loved ones. Take a couple of deep breaths, you guys. Reflect on the upcoming future that you've worked so hard to create for yourselves, your family, and your loved ones. As I prepared this short speech, I wondered how I might connect with each and every one of you. What could I, a stranger, say to inspire? I may be from a different cultural experience. I'm the child of migrant farm workers who made a great life in the United States. I lived a somewhat nomadic life. We moved, changing schools 6 to 7 times. In high school alone, I changed schools 3 times. We moved a lot, needless to say. Going to UWS was probably the most consistent and long-term place I had lived my entire life. That may be different from many of you. Still, I think we will ask ourselves the very same questions. Am I up to the challenge of the patients I'll encounter? Will I be able to help everyone I see, everyone that walks through the door where I'm working? Will I be able to answer the questions that come my way? And if I don't start a practice, can I satisfy my employers? How will I start a practice if I'm going to start a practice? I felt pretty overwhelmed after my education, despite everything I'd achieved. Sorry, I think is the mic off occasionally? On and off? Okay. Despite the pride my family felt for me and I felt for myself, it can be very overwhelming to leave the nest of the university and get out into success in the real world. I'm here to tell you, you will develop an ease with all the different circumstances and challenges that come your way. The knowledge you've received at this institution has prepared you well. I'd like to give you some advice that I found very helpful, advice that was given to me by an older practitioner, and advice that served me well. You must never take it personally when there are patients, employers, or clients that you may not have answers for. There will be clients, patients, and employers that you cannot personally help. Oh, I feel it's still going, okay. There will most likely be some that are totally dissatisfied no matter what you do. This does not make you a failure. It simply makes you and all those you want to help human. Find ways to be gentle with yourself when you can't find answers a client, a patient, or an employer may be looking for. Look for others that can help you along your way. Please do not feel defeated when you're not the one who has the answer. You just may not have the answer or be the answer right at that moment. One of the best examples I can give you is to relate a garden variety patient, back pain patient I had, and I honestly can't remember the diagnosis, but I do recall that every time the patient came in, they reeked of alcohol. And I tried to explain why alcohol had the potential to damage treatment outcomes. And during the course of the treatment, the patient kept touching my leg or my arm. I kept thinking maybe I was standing too close, maybe I needed to give them more room, and I simply moved farther away. However, by the third appointment, the patient asked me on a date, despite the fact that his wife was in the waiting room. Yeah, I'd already explained why he shouldn't drink alcohol before an appointment, and now I had to deal with a boundary issue, a clear boundary crossing. This was the first time I had to confront a patient that crossed a boundary, and frankly, I was very nervous and uncertain. I pretended I needed something in another room. You can use this trick, it works. So I left the room to compose myself and develop a strategy. I was fortunate to have a mother who showed me through example great compassion, acceptance, and love. I combined my mother's lessons with a decade of yoga training and calmed myself while I was waiting in my office coming up with a strategy. I came up with a plan and re-entered the room. Looking at the patient with as much compassion as I could muster, I focused on his vulnerability, his pain. I thought about the altered cognition due to his alcohol. I knew I had to set a clear boundary, telling him it was inappropriate for him to behave this way. I let him know I'd be happy to discuss his idea that we go on a date after I brought his wife into the room, and I quickly left the room, surprising him, and went and got his wife. He was shocked when I stepped out so quickly. I don't think he figured I was going to act that fast. He obviously was nervous. I reminded him when his wife came in that I wouldn't be able to treat him anymore if he showed up under the influence of any alcohol. I decided not to broach the boundary subject. I figured I'd let him do that. So I asked him, after I had a long discussion about alcohol, if he had anything else he wanted to talk about with his wife or me. He didn't. And I didn't either. However, he left very angry. He refused to pay his bill and made a big stink at the front desk. There were patients in the waiting room. And I remember thinking, I'd failed that one. I remember thinking, man, I just lost a patient because I was too tough. It was hard on me, especially early in my career when financially I could least afford to lose a patient. I had few sleepless nights over this. And again, I leaned on yoga, my love of the outdoors, to regain my peace and quiet. Can't tell you how many times I hiked the Columbia Gorge because of this problem. And eventually my feelings of financial desperation and my sense of failure just melted away over time. Because of this encounter, I highly recommend that each and every one of you, no matter your career, adopt life habits away from there where you can find peace, where you can release any of those doubts and feelings of fear that will inevitably hit you throughout your life. I was lucky. Both of my parents taught me to love nature. Both of my parents had very kind hearts. Whether it's communing with nature, attending a local church, taking yoga classes, I urge you, find a way to build strength away from your work. You must recharge yourself regularly. Now back to my story. What the heck happened? How did this empower me? How did it turn out beyond a patient walking out angry, making a stink in the office, and then I went and did some yoga and hiking? Let's fast forward 2 years. This is the part that's important. Later, he and his wife showed up. They showed up on the schedule again, and my staff said, wow, they're both in the treatment room waiting for you, Dr. Guerrero. Well, knowing his wife was with him kind of brought a little relief and put me at ease because I thought at least he wasn't going to make another pass at me. He was sitting on the exam table when I opened the door, and his wife was off to the side on a chair. Rather than remaining on the exam table, however, he stood up. He looked me in the eye the minute I entered the room. He walked towards me rapidly and said, I don't know if you remember me, but I remember you. I'll never forget you, Dr. Guerrero. I was momentarily taken off guard, and I worried he was going to be angry. I'm sure I stepped back as he approached me. I was kind of scared. My eyes shifted to his wife, but she had a poker face. I couldn't read what she was thinking. He put those feelings of anger to rest immediately, and he suddenly said, "Doctor, I owe you a debt of gratitude." He stretched his hand out to shake mine. I was confused at first, and I'm sure he saw that on my face. He continued to explain, by my confronting his alcoholism and his very poor behavior, he finally went into rehab, and he had been sober now for almost 2 years. His wife sat in the chair and cried as he related this. Then she jumped out of her chair and threw her arms around me and hugged me. I have to tell you, it was one of many heartfelt moments of my career. And they ended up referring a lot of patients. I'm sure all of you will have many heartfelt moments during your careers, whether it's with your employer, a client, or a patient. UWS has prepared you for that. Now, why would I tell you a story of practice struggle when you're at the beginning of your career, right? Thanks a lot, Minga. My point in telling you is this. Sometimes we don't realize the good that comes from the work we do. Sometimes that good lands much later when you least expect it. If you can remain truly honest, compassionate, and act with the patient's very best interests, I think you'll find incredible joy in all the work you do. And I think that work will be recognized and rewarded going forward. Sometimes it simply means recognizing your limits, setting realistic boundaries and compassion, not only for your patient, your client, or your employer, but for yourselves as well. You will often be the life preserver that others hold on to in times of need. Be gentle and forgiving of yourself, your patients, your employers, and your clients. One of the very first items in setting up a business, I'm going to give you a second piece of advice here. I recommend you take time at the very beginning of your career to build bridges with colleagues in your community. Create that healing network that strengthens the life preserver into a vessel of healing potential. This helps strengthen the way you're able to help your community. It makes it easy to let your community help you. You heard me right. You need to let your community help you. Building mutual referrals strengthens healing potentials in both directions, and there's always more strength in numbers. Never forget, part of that team is your alma mater. Just because you graduate and move to the next phase of your career doesn't mean UWS is not here for you. Think of the educational power in this institution. Think of the faculty and all the people you've made friends with over the years. UWS can and should always be a part of your career life. Now get out there, you guys. Bask in that accomplishment that you've achieved. Spend some time celebrating. You are the future of these professions, and I'm so happy that you are. Congratulations, graduates. I wish you all the best.